Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're looking at the human body not just as some, marvel of nature, but as a highly advanced, incredibly high-stakes biological waste management plant. We're breaking down IGCSE Biology topic 13.1, which is all about excretion in humans. If you've ever stopped to wonder how your body keeps itself from basically being poisoned from the inside out, well, you're about to find out exactly how it happens. Here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with the waste problem, meet the big three organs, map out the urinary system, and then zoom inside the nephron. After that, we'll cover filtration and reabsorption before wrapping up with the liver's vital role. All right, section 1, the waste problem. Listen, every single second, your cells are carrying out chemical reactions just to keep you alive. But those reactions, they come with a cost. To deal with that cost, we rely on excretion, which is strictly defined as the removal of waste products of metabolism and substances in excess of requirements. So we aren't just talking about getting rid of things we don't need. We're talking about dealing with the literal, physical byproducts of staying alive. So the crucial point here is that many of these chemical reactions release highly toxic byproducts. Honestly, if we didn't have a way to get rid of them, these byproducts would completely disrupt the normal functioning of the organism. They'd actually cause severe damage if they were just allowed to accumulate. Basically, without excretion, our own metabolic processes would essentially poison us. Crazy, right? Moving on to section 2, the big three organs. Now that we understand the life or death stakes of toxic accumulation, let's meet our primary solutions. The major excretory organs stepping up to the plate are the lungs, the kidneys, and the liver. Each of these has a highly specialized job in keeping our internal environment clean. Let's break down exactly what they do. Let's contrast the lungs and the kidneys for a second. The lungs deal with gaseous waste. They excrete carbon dioxide, which is a byproduct of respiration. That CO2 travels in the bloodstream from your respiring tissues straight to the capillaries in your lungs, where it diffuses into the alveoli to be exhaled. The kidneys, on the other hand, well, they sit right there on either side of your spine, and they deal with liquid waste. They filter your blood to excrete a highly toxic substance called urea, along with any excess water and ions you might have picked up from your diet.
Okay, section 3, the urinary system.
And this brilliantly illustrates the specific physical path this liquid waste takes. It's a strict one-way sequence. Step 1, the kidneys filter the blood, removing all of that urea plus some water and ions. Step 2, these substances are transported as a liquid, urine, through tubes called ureters. Step 3, that urine is temporarily stored in the bladder. And finally, step 4, it's excreted from the body through another tube called the urethra. It's a highly efficient, no-nonsense system.
Next up, section 4, inside the nephron.
Now, for those of you studying the IGCSE syllabus, consider this a clear signpost. We are officially crossing over from the core material into the extended syllabus. We need to look much, much closer at the machinery here. If you look at the macro-level anatomy of a kidney, the outer region is the cortex and the inner zone is the medulla. But the real magic, that happens down at the microscopic level. The tissue inside the kidney is actually packed with these tiny, specialized structures called nephrons. Before we set all this machinery into motion, let's map out the specific anatomical parts of a single nephron. It starts with a glomerulus, a tightly coiled knot of capillaries. Surrounding that is the cup-shaped renal capsule. Connected to the capsule is a long looping renal tubule, which eventually leads down into a collecting duct. Having this mental map is absolutely crucial for understanding how this microscopic factory actually operates.
Which brings us to section 5, filtration and reabsorption.
These are the two opposing mechanical forces that make the nephron function like a high-efficiency processing plant. Think of it as a two-part operation with very different speeds. First is filtration. As blood rushes into the narrow capillaries of the glomerulus, the pressure rapidly spikes, forcefully squeezing some of its contents outwards through the thin walls. But then, things slow way down for reabsorption. As this solution travels, the body very carefully, very selectively, takes the exact substances it needs back out of the filtrate, returning them directly into the blood. So what actually gets squeezed out during that initial high-pressure filtration phase? Well, the solution forced out into the renal capsule is called the filtrate, and it contains 4 key ingredients: water, glucose, urea, and ions. Stripping these specific substances out of the blood is exactly what we defined as filtration. Let's move to and see how this builds as the filtrate moves down that convoluted, looping renal tubule. The body essentially starts frantically grabbing back what it desperately needs. Notice the priority list here. First, all the glucose is reabsorbed. I mean, we definitely don't want to lose that precious energy source. After that, most of the water is reabsorbed. And finally, some of the ions are taken back, specifically just to maintain the exact right concentration levels in your blood. Once that meticulous reabsorption process is wrapped up, what remains of the filtrate is our final product, urine. This contains the excess water, the excess ions, and all of that highly toxic urea, literally all the stuff the body rejected. This leftover fluid passes right down the collecting duct, through the ureters, and straight to the bladder. The filtration factory has officially done its job. And finally, Section 6, the liver's vital role. Now, this leaves a massive question hanging in the air. We keep talking about this incredibly toxic substance called urea, but where does it actually come from in the first place? To understand urea's origin story, we have to look at the liver as a chemical synthesis plant, which means talking about assimilation. Assimilation is simply the uptake and use of nutrients by cells. The liver is a huge player here, constantly removing amino acids from the bloodstream and using them to synthesize really important proteins. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it highlights a major biological limitation. We can easily store excess carbohydrates, and we can for sure store excess fats. But excess amino acids? Nope, they cannot be stored in the body. We just can't hold on to them. Because of this storage problem, any leftover amino acids have to be dealt with immediately. They're either converted into glucose or they get broken down by the liver. And right here is the origin story we've been looking for. When the liver breaks down those excess amino acids, it does it through a process called deamination. This is the precise removal of the nitrogen-containing part of the amino acids. And guess what? That specific process forms urea. Once this highly poisonous substance is created, it gets dumped straight into the bloodstream, where it travels until it's finally filtered out by those hardworking kidneys we just talked about. Which really brings us to the ultimate realization of just how interconnected our biological homeostasis actually is. Excretion isn't just about taking out the trash. It's this constant, high-speed balancing act. So I'll leave you with this to ponder. Given that our source explicitly warns us that urea is extremely poisonous, what would happen to our bodies if our liver suddenly couldn't deaminate those excess amino acids, and that highly toxic urea was simply allowed to accumulate unchecked? It really puts the life-saving work of your liver and kidneys into a whole new perspective, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible mechanisms going on inside you right now.